Hi guys, I'm here today with Chelsea, who is going to talk a little bit about the big D, otherwise known as the dissertation. I'm over here like in a cold sweat.
You never have to do it again. It's okay. You never have to do it again.
So in terms of the final year of graduate school, when you're doing the dissertation and you're looking for jobs, it can be really stressful. At least that was my somewhat blurry remembrance of it all, though I may have suppressed a good portion of it. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the emotional side or the sort of stress side of dealing with a dissertation.
Yes, really stressful might even be an understatement. It's probably the most stressed I've ever been. But I think the important thing is to not get too down on yourself. Take a break when you need to. You know, if you need to take a day where you're not doing any job applications and you are, you know, just having fun with your friends, or you stay in and watch Netflix all day, whatever your self-care is, do it.
Yeah.
Give yourself a day and then, you know, try to get back on the horse the next day. And, you know, it will happen. It does take time.
It does take time.
It will take longer than you think it will, but it will happen. You just have to keep trying.
What kinds of writing and doing the dissertation data collection and research, what kinds of tips do you have for people who are beginning that process?
Yes, I think the number one thing is to start early. Start earlier than you think you need to, even if it's just to, you know, make a rough outline or to just, you know, start typing up your methods, you know, stuff you already know, like how many participants you had and their ages. You know, getting that leg up and getting started early is going to really save you down the road when you're writing the parts that you're not so excited about, like the discussion. It's always a tough part to do. So starting early, I think, is a really big thing. Having an outline, I think that makes it much less overwhelming. So to be able to say, you know, I'm going to talk about this topic here and this topic here, really allows you to focus on those small sections when you are writing. So I can say, you know, I'm going to focus on this one bullet within my introduction today, and that's all I'm going to write about. It makes it much less overwhelming than if you're just, you know, sit down at your desk and say, all right, 100 pages.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
The blinking cursor
Yeah.
of doom.
Another thing that I did that worked out well for me was writing and editing separately. So I would usually take an approach where I would sit down and I would just write. You know, I wouldn't go back and read. I wouldn't check for typos. I would just write and get words on the page. And then after time had passed, a couple days later, I would go back and edit it. And what I would realize is, you know, I actually did an okay job just sitting and writing, you know, whereas when I was actually doing the writing, I was thinking, wow, this probably isn't very good. Probably gonna have to heavily edit this. You know, a couple days later, taking a new perspective, it's like, oh, I actually did okay. It's staying in.
Some of this is still usable.
Yeah.
Yay.
What do you know?
What about the things like the tables and the figures and the formatting?
They are time consuming. Formatting the table of contents, formatting the list of figures and the list of tables, the figures themselves, the references. So definitely don't underestimate how long those kinds of things are going to take. On the flip side though, you know, the days where I had spent, you know, several days previous writing and my brain was just like, I can't handle this anymore, it was really nice to be able to say, okay, today I'm going to work on formatting my references. It doesn't require a lot of brain power, but it was something I could do that would actually, you know, make me feel a little more productive and actually get the work done.
Can you talk a little bit about the data collection process for the dissertation?
Yes, so that's sort of the other side of the dissertation process versus writing it, actually collecting the data. So the way that it works is that I worked with my advisor and we talked about, you know, what sort of study that I would do for my dissertation. I wrote that up in what's called a prospectus, prepared that and defended that to my committee. They all said yes. So it basically involved bringing families into the research lab on campus. It really was a very brief study. It only took about 30 minutes overall. That times about 100 was what was involved in my data collection. So it definitely did take a long time. Luckily, I did have some research assistants who were able to help me in collecting all that data. But I would say from start to finish, it was probably about 5 months of actual data collection, most of that over the summer, and then lots of Saturdays in the fall.
So thing for people who don't do research with kids, the rate of data attrition is horrendous because you can't always get kids to sit still or do the task. If you're talking about 100 kids, which is what you need for your sample, you're really talking about running like 120 to 140 kids.
Yeah, plus piloting. So, you know, when you're first figuring out what the study's going to be like, you know, you need to make little tweaks. It can take time because then you can't include those participants after you change your procedure. So,
yeah, dissertation data collection takes way longer than you think it's going to.
Everything, that's the moral of the story.
Everything takes way longer than
you think it will.
Yeah,
so
which can be infinitely frustrating, but you will get through, you will do the thing.
Yes.
It's going to be okay. And can you talk a little bit about working with your committee members? I know some people have really great committee members and it's really easy, and sometimes there are weird hurdles that get thrown up in the way.
Yes, so I definitely had a big weird hurdle that came up in terms of scheduling my actual defense. When the time came to do it, I reached out to my committee and was like, you know, what's your summer schedule look like? Thinking I would be able to defend mid to late June, maybe early July. My external committee member said, oh, actually I'm going to be in Sweden for 2 months.
How dare you take a vacation?
In the summer, there's an 8-hour time difference, so Skyping's going to be tricky. So my choices were defend June 1st or defend after he got back in August. So that was a little stressful.
Oh dear.
I ended up choosing to defend June 1st and get it done with earlier, which I'm glad I did in the long run. But I think, you know, I could have avoided that had I reached out to them earlier and let them know, you know, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Could you tell me what your schedule is like? So talk to your committee, make sure you're all on the same page. Because people travel in summer and they do it for long periods of time.
It's a thing that professors do, I guess. Well, thank you, Chelsea, for sharing all your words of wisdom about surviving the dissertation. If you guys have questions, leave them below in comments, and I will try to answer them. And if I can't, I'll reach out to Chelsea to answer them. But as always, thanks for watching. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more of these kinds of things. And we'll see you next time.